here is low, and a rise in Dagestan. And also in Kabardino-Balkary. So not only in the center of this region, but also of both sides in front of Chechnya. Well, as I have already said, there is a common features of each of all terrorist movements, and so here I try to compare three of them: Caucasian Emirate, self-declared quasi-state of jihadists, Liberation Tiger of Tamil Eelam, yes, on Sri Lanka, on Ceylon, and Sendero Luminoso in Peru, Peruvian left-wing radical movement. So we can say that some features, the structure of organization, mode of mobilization, interconnection with civilian and public opinion, violence, direction of society and officials, and ideology are almost common in each of these examples. So we can say that it is so. It is depends on that what make the violence successful. Not on the characteristics of each this region, on his history, or maybe culture, or religion, but on the answer of the question why the violence is effective. Because in each of these examples, the violence was effective. We can see the rise after long periods of slowly development. For example, Sendero Luminoso rising was in the mid of 1980s, and before that, during more than 2 decades, at the end of from the end of 1950s, there were I don't know how to explain currently disturbance into society, and then in 1981 a rise, terrible terrorist organization. The same situation was in the Tamil community on Ceylon. Tamils fought for their independence against Singals from 1953 or something like that. Well, when the Ceylon became independent, so they began their fight. But during the 30 years, they fought with the peaceful, in peaceful mode. They create parties, other political organizations try to become their representatives in parliament and so on. And in 1982, a young man named Vilpilai Prabhakaran established Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. He was 18 years old, and his friends and co-fighters were also teenagers. The same was in the case of Sendero Luminoso, except his leader, Admiral Guzman Reynoso, was older. He was about 30 years old, and the fighters also was teenagers or something like that. And when we see on Caucasus emirate, we can find the same. Most of intrigants are young people. Well, I will tell without picture. This question, why violence is effective? Why in societies of one type is effective and ineffective in the other societies? Well, the socio-economic data and socio-economic studies of various regions in the world tell us that in societies where the rights of each person, rights of property, on safety life, on education, and so on, are secured by the state, or if the state is weak or something like that, by the rules of game in this society, it will be stable, and in such society the violence will be controlled by a structure like a police or maybe army and so on. If there are no such agreement between the members of society, and if the basic rights are not granted, then we have a probability as more high as long periods we find such disagreement, probability of social collapse and arising a violence, a Gaussian violence, each against others. That's all what I want to say. If you have any questions, yes?
Thank you. Thank you very much for interesting report, interesting presentation. Please, questions? Probably you.
I can try. So, thank you for the presentation. It was really good. But you told us about the young people who are participants of this terroristic organization. So I have some questions about it. So first of all, when you're talking about young people in this organization, you're talking about all the participants of this organization, or just the people who are standing in the lower level of this organization? And if it's so, are there any difference between, for example, people who are standing on a higher level of this organization and people who are standing on a lower level of this organization? This is very interesting for me.
Well, because the term young people itself means longevity. You are young in 20 years, and 25 years, and until 30 or maybe 35. So, of course, almost all of the participants are young. But on the low level of organization, they are younger than on the top, of course. And the difference is about half a generation, about 1 decade. For example, 22 years and 30 years. It is so because in such organizations, such movements, there are usually in numbers, and this need is constant. So if one died, then they try to involve another, and so this one of this organization, one of these movements, and there are the Minosa precisely, developed an algorithm to adaptation. They kidnapped small children, 7, 8 years maybe, and then trained them into the camps until they grow, and when they was able to fight, and 15, 16 years, then they sent them into the city to make a terrorist attack, for example.
Like Janitschary in us.
Well, we can maybe, but the Janitschary Corps do not use the children into the war, during the war. They also kidnapped, they also made the children from their parents, but until they are adult, they do not fight. And in such organizations, from time to time, we can meet even child armies, child armed forces. On the other hand, the rulers, the governments of such structures are stable. Of course, from time to time, they are killed too, or captured by the government force, but not each day.
So you think that terrorist attacks is some kind of war?
Yes,
So
it's a guerrilla war
for them or for us or for whom? Or for everybody?
for us.
For us. For us, for us. Because for me not, for example, because I am not included in this war. So for me the
I mean, for us,
attack-
to the state against which the terrorist organization take this attempt to fight. I mean, not against the citizens. It is a war between organization and the state.
Organization, terrorist organization. So these young people are just the soldiers of this organization.
Well, yeah.
Satisfied?
Yeah.
Please, Dr. Elizabeth Morska.
Yes, yeah.
Probably you have questions.
Yes, I do. Where do I start? Oh, okay. Let me quote you first, and thank you for this presentation. That was very informative and awesome. I just have one suggestion. Sometimes I couldn't read what was on the screen because the letters were just basically too small. So you couldn't read from this position here. You couldn't really see what was here. Just but at some point you said the rise of young terrorists. When you discussed the rise of young terrorists in South Asia and other areas, neighboring areas, you summed it up as saying they are neither poor nor low educated, and you concluded that therefore this cannot be connected with economic situation in South Asia. However, it seemed to me that you said that these were the leaders who were neither poor nor low educated. My question is, well, could we then make an assumption about masses, because it sounds like non sequitur.
I mean, they are not poor nor educated in compare with all population.
Okay.
Of course, South Asian countries are poor. Sub-Saharan Africa also it's just terrible. And I mean another population. Why, if they are not so pure as their neighbors, nothing, and their neighbors not. Why is a small person? Not everyone, because they live in the same conditions, and it isn't a national liberating war, national liberating movement. That's what I mean.
So it's really interesting because you can bring into perspective the shift in priorities, for instance, and wonder whether while Western world is vilified, it can still be presented as desirable. Because, well, if I start desiring something else while my neighbors live in the little shacks and are satisfied, in fact, it reflects on me and my desires. Obviously, unmet.
Well, it's a very big and very deep question. If I may answer it in short, it is depends on the future perspective. As I have said, there are some social economic data about it, and precisely about Sendero Luminoso. One of Peruvian economists named Hernando de Soto, now he lived worked in the United States, in 1985 published his work Another Path. Sendero Luminoso means shining path, is a short name of the official name of this terrorist movement. Partido Comunista Peru del Sendero Luminoso de José Carlos María Terro, which means a Communist Party of Peru named after the shining path of José Carlos María Terro, who was a Peruvian Lenin. And so De Soto wrote a book which he entitled Another Path, not Shining Path, but Another Path. And he's in this book described the situation in Peru in the mid of 1980s, why it was so. It was a poor country, and it was a gap in socio-economic positions between citizens and farmers. They migrate into town, into Lima precisely. He described the situation in Lima. They see that this difference and ask themselves why, although we are the same nation, we are so poor and they are so rich. And then came the left-wing radicals and explained them, because they are imperialist, capitalist, and we must destroy them, kill them, and take their property to us. So in Western countries, there isn't so big difference between the low class and high class. There are not so many farmers, and so the radical prophets haven't an object for their propaganda. So, yeah, I mean, this is the answer of De Soto, not my answer. So maybe so. From economic point of view.
Are you satisfied?
Yes. I have just two tiny suggestions which you may be already probably familiar with. I know several studies of inner city gangs in American towns like Los Angeles, Chicago, and Detroit have been done in recent years, and they also take on the violence as social institution, organized crime as social institution, the hierarchy, the motivation of mostly young men and
it's
so on.
American and European point of view. In Russia, usually the scientists do not describe the violence as an institution. We can find that in books that family, the church, the property as an institution. And when someone of sociologist or political scientist writes something about violence, he doesn't describe it as an institution. So in the West is a common sense, but in Russia we can say almost nobody thinks so.
And just one more tiny, again, not even a suggestion. I wonder if you are familiar with Uganda case of child soldiers, because this is a lesser known case of child soldiers.
Yes, but
Lord's
not so
army.
good. Yeah, yes, I know the child army.
Very exactly. They
In
were
Congo,
trained.
for example. Yes.
Yes, they were kidnapped and they were trained to be soldiers and basically sent to fight, to be cannon fodder. Okay, thank you. That's
Rustam first.
Well, actually, thank you for your thoughts. It's very interesting item, and I've got maybe several questions. First, how do you could formulate the main goal of your scientific work? Is it mostly a description of existing terrorist movements around the world, or maybe you're concentrating on the Caucasus? And in the connection with the Caucasus, are you trying to predict something and to create a model of future developments, or it's just a description of what we have now and what the main purpose of your work actually? Because you have mentioned very different terroristic movements around the world actually, and for me they have just maybe they are similar just from the one side. It's the terroristic organizations, but the goals of these movements are different, and the origin of these movements also different. And maybe these our terroristic movements that we have on the Caucasus, they are much more similar to what we have on the Middle East right now. Or maybe you can correct me. Maybe it's not. Is there any links between our terroristic movements in our country and this what is happening right now in the Middle East? What do you think about it? So it's several questions.
Yes, the answer on the first question. I try to achieve all these goals which you have which you named. I mean the description, the analysis, and maybe also interconnections with the other regions, with the terrorist movements in other regions, and also maybe I should try to find an answer on the question: what will be in the next 10 years? Who will win? Russian state or this self-declared Caucasian enemy? Of course, North Caucasus terrorists are similar to the Middle East, but it isn't another example. The situation in the Middle East countries is the same that, for example, in Peru or, for example, in Sri Lanka. I can tell you even more. It's a common opinion that the suicide bombings is a know-how of Islamic terrorists. It's a wrong point of view because the first movement who have begun to use suicide bombings was namely LTT, Tigers of Tamilolan. And after them, they began to use Hezbollah. Now we have a document which can explain this. The Tamilian separatists buy there in Middle East the weapon, and they was instructors to Islamic groups in Syria and Lebanon, and so it is know-how of Tamils, not in Arab countries. And so the interconnection between various terrorist movements we have now, but it isn't a kind of a central government, central terrorist government, which gives an orders to the local terrorist government, the local organization. Yeah, it is something like an internet. When one of these organizations makes something new, the other try to copy it. And so
you think that, for example, just Pavel asked this question about the war. Actually, this is a kind of terrorist war we have, for example, in the Middle East. Could you just assume that this is the war is governed from outside, or is just all these wars just arose in this particular countries? What maybe could it be governed from some way? It's kind of new way of war. Maybe it's not using all soldiers, but to use some terroristic organizations and to govern them. And the same thing with our Caucasus. Could we predict these things in our republics? You said this very important thing that the terrorist threat is closely connected with amount of young population. And is this obligatory that we have the trouble if we have many young people in some regions? So, excuse me.
well, what can I say? Of course, we can assume, we can think that there is anywhere a superpower or something like that that controls each of terrorist movement or use it to achieve his own goals. But you see, in each interconnection between social systems isn't so easy to say who is a ruler and who must obey. For example, when during the war and Soviet invention, Soviet war in Afghanistan, United States, CIA give some ammunition, weapons, and other to mujahideen. Of course, they used them to stop the Soviet invention and to save Afghanistan from Soviet occupation or